have the power! Y'all know I couldn't start this thing without doing it. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and this is just my opinion. Hey, what's going on, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Just My Opinion for my Netflix series review for He-Man Masters of the Universe Revelation. And if this is your first time finding me and you happen to like the video, please give me that thumbs up and consider subscribing. So when it comes to He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, this one is actually titled Masters of the Universe Revelation. I remember this show or TV series back in the 80s vaguely. One of my childhood friends was like a diehard fan of this franchise, like He-Man, He-Man, He-Man everywhere. I didn't have anything against it. It just kind of always slipped under my radar, but I was familiar with it. Now, 35 plus years later, we have a sequel being put together by Mr. Kevin Smith. And if you're not too familiar with this gentleman right here, he's done Clerks, he's done a number of things. He is very popular in the fandom when it comes to geek culture and entertainment news and things of that nature. And this is kind of like a passion project for him. And you can kind of tell, especially after watching this feature right here. But like I said, I did not, or I'm not that familiar with the original series. I found out that this is a sequel that is following that series. So going into this, I was like, wow, am I going to be confused? Am I not going to understand what's going on with all the lore in the universe and all that good stuff? So that is some of the concerns that I had going into this series. And I'll address if they fixed it or not within the sequel. But before I do that, let me tell you exactly what it's all about. A radical return to Eternia, Revelation is a direct sequel series to the classic era of Masters of the Universe. Featuring fan favorites He-Man, Orko, Cringer, and Man-at-Arms, the story pits our heroic warriors and guardians of Castle Grayskull against Skeletor, Evil Lyn, Beastman, and the vile legions of Snake Mountain. But after a ferocious final battle forever fractures Eternia, it's up to Teela to solve the mystery of the missing sword of power in a race against time to prevent the end of the universe. Her journey will uncover the secrets of Grayskull. At last, this epic He-Man and the Masters of the Universe saga fans have waited 35 years to see. So when this trailer did first drop for this series on Netflix, I did react to it on my channel and it performed quite well. When I saw the trailer, I was excited. I was pumped. I was like, yes, I am ready and here for everything that this Masters of the Universe Revelation series has to offer. And one of the things that I did like early on is, if you are concerned, if you don't know anything about this franchise, whether or not you will be confused, they take care of that within the first 30 to 45 seconds of this series. Just kind of giving you a brief rundown of what Castle Grayskull is about, Snake Mountain, who the good guys are and who the bad guys are, and why there is a beef or war and all that. I loved it. The narration was very clear and easy to understand. It also helped with the great animation that's throughout this entire production as well. The images are pretty crisp and those colors are bright as hell. If you have a giant display at home when you're watching this on Netflix, if you even want to crank up the color just a little bit, you will have a great time. I cranked it up to the max and it was absolutely outstanding. So that's just something I enjoyed throughout the whole series, but it also helped in the very beginning, just trying to teach me what's going on, who He-Man is and all that good stuff, because I don't have that good of a memory from when I was a little kid back in the 80s. It also sounded great too. If you have a great sound system at home, crank that thing up past to 50 and you'll have a great time. And it's also just great to hear He-Man power up, kind of like I was joking around at the intro of this, by the power of Grayskull, I have the power. Just hearing that, hearing the character's voice already deep, sounding like a manly man, but get even deeper as he's transforming into the most powerful being in the universe. It just sounds amazing and all types of badass. You can't help yourself when you watch it at home to scream it out too with the character on screen. It's just that infectious, and that just kind of goes to show how entertaining this series is. Now, at the time of me recording this video, I have seen this series twice, all 5 episodes. And to be honest with you, I wasn't that big a fan of it the first time I saw it. I wasn't saying to myself, okay, this is bad. This is a big disappointment, you know, but it just wasn't anything special to me. I don't know. Maybe I was watching it in the wrong headspace, because the second time I watched it, I enjoyed it much, much more the second time around. I don't know what it was, because I wasn't sleeping the first time, but I was just able to appreciate everything that much more this second time around. And that probably has to do with the characters. I mean, we have a great cast here. We all know that Mark Hamill, who did Luke Skywalker and also Joker a number of times in DC animated properties, that he is Skeletor, the titular, or not the titular, but the main antagonist, the main bad guy within the series. There's so much conviction to his performance. I mean, he is really committed and to this role, and it's very, very convincing. You know, whether you like this series or not, it's going to be very difficult for you to walk away and say that you did not enjoy Mark Hamill's performance, because he really does go for the fences in this role, and I absolutely loved every moment of it. But he's not the only one. You also have Sarah Michelle Gellar as Tila, Lena Headey as Eva Lynn from Game of Thrones, Justin Long as Roboto. I like him as an actor. He's just a funny guy to me. I talked about Mark Hamill, Kevin Conroy as Merman, and I'll have to talk about that later. And also Chris Wood as the titular character He-Man. And everybody did a great job here. I mean, they really are standout roles. They are really committed to this, like I was just saying, that Skeletor was Mark Hamill. I love the cast. The voices were easily distinguishable from each other, and that's just one of the better parts of the series to me. Now, there are some childlike moments every once in a while in this series here. If you had to ask the question, okay, like, who is this series for? Is it for children? Is it for adults leaning more mature, or is it somewhere in the middle? I would say somewhere in the middle, leaning a little bit more to the children's side of that. And that may be a turnoff to some people out there, but it's the voice acting, all the performances from the cast that brings it up a level. So you're not saying to yourself, okay, this is just a childish mess, you know, for my little boy or girl. No, I mean, if you watch this as an adult, I think you will have a good time, especially if you were a fan of the franchise back in the 80s. Now, if you had to compare this series, an animated series, to other animated, you know, properties that are being released out in the world right now, you could for DC animation. And I will easily say that I do enjoy DC animated films much better than I did this series. The action, well, let's not talk about the action. The animation is on par. That's kind of the same, but the action is not as tight, as crisp as any DC animated films. Now, some of you may get mad that I'm just making that comparison, but I just felt like making a comparison to other animated properties. And so if you put a gun on my head and say, either pick He-Man, Master of the Universe Revelation, or the latest 5 DC animated films, I would probably pick the DC animated film, just because those are more mature, for my senses, whether it's the dialogue or the intense fighting scenes. It's just a bit more mature. But again, that does not say that Masters of the Universe is bad when it comes to the animation. And when it does come to the fight scenes, they are pretty decent. I mean, there is great displays of power, within this series, whether it's coming from He-Man, Orko, or Skeletor, played by Mark Hamill. Like I said, Skeletor, Mark Hamill is dedicated. He's committed, and he is throwing every power blast he can at He-Man, just trying to destroy him. It's quite entertaining. It just is throwing it here and there. But sometimes the passion is lost between some characters. I talked about Kevin Conroy as Merman. This kind of goes to where I was talking about the childish nature of the series, to where his motivations just wasn't there. With some characters it is, but with Merman it isn't. I mean, at one point in this series, he just goes and starts monologuing like, oh my gosh, when the Masters of the Universe failed, we could have teamed up. We could have ruled the universe together, but you forgot about me, and I'll make sure that you never forget about me again. Die! And it's just like, really, man? Is that the only thing that's getting you motivated right now? Okay, I'm not really convinced, and that seemed kind of silly, and it's a really distraction from everything that came before, but whatever. I guess everything can't be perfect. The series isn't that long. This first part is only 5 episodes, with each episode lasting 22 to 23 minutes, so you can easily binge this thing all the way through, no problem. The plot was very simple, but that's fine. Things don't have to be overly complicated. And it's kind of interesting too. I didn't really notice this until the second time I saw it, but He-Man kind of takes the back seat as one of the main characters in his own series. And this really does focus on the women a lot. Teela, played by Sarah Michelle Gellar, is a standout. I mean, she is a very powerful character, and I loved everything about her. I mean, she's sick of the crap, she's sick of the lies, and she just kind of wants to go out on her own. I mean, her, Evelyn, played by Lena Headey, and also Oracle, are supporting characters, but they are put on the forefront, you know, of this journey. And like I said, I really did love everything that Teela had to offer within this series, and just showing her struggle and her fighting against fear and having to overcome that mental obstacle. It really does develop her character and flesh out the story past what it already was. And they even take time to develop some subplots here on the side. There's this cult organization called the Motherboard. Kind of funny, kind of goofy, kind of wonky, but at the same time, I did like it, and it was a great addition to this series as well. But guys, overall, while my expectations were mediocre at best, I did enjoy this series, especially the second time I watched it. It is something that I would not mind watching again. I love the animation, I love the way it looked, and the action was quite fun. I can't wait to see what happens in part 2, because this one does leave you on a cliffhanger, but I'll definitely be back for more, and I just can't wait to see it. I'll give my rating at the end, but guys, that is just my opinion. I did enjoy this series. I hope you will too. If you don't, that's perfectly fine. All things are subjective. If you did like the video, please go ahead and give me the thumbs up. Also, subscribe to my channel and follow me on social media. And if I had to rate He-Man Masters of the Universe Revelation out of a 1 out of 10, I think I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10. Yes, a 7.5 out of 10. My guys, again, I want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget that my name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.